The silent fortress. The mining colony of Titan's Rest floated in the darkness between two dying stars, a metal flower blooming in the void. For 12 years it had been home to 30,000 humans who carved precious minerals from the asteroids that drifted through this forgotten corner of space. Today it was about to become a graveyard. Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the cold glass of the command center's observation window, watching the Krellian warships emerge from hyperspace like demons materializing from nightmare. One by one they appeared, sleek vessels of polished obsidian that seemed to drink in the light from the distant stars. 20 ships, then 30, then 40. The counter on her tactical display kept climbing. Administrator Chen were being hailed. Communications Officer David Martinez announced, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. The young man had joined the colony just 6 months ago, fresh from Earth's Technical Academy. He had come here for adventure and opportunity. He hadn't expected war. Sarah turned from the window, her reflection briefly visible in the glass. A woman of 45 with premature gray streaking through her black hair. Earned through years of managing humanity's frontier, she had overseen mining disputes, equipment failures, and supply shortages. But an alien invasion fleet? This was beyond anything in her job description. Put them through, she commanded, straightening her worn administrator's jacket. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a creature that seemed carved from living stone. The Krellian commander's face was all angles and edges, with 6 eyes arranged in 2 vertical rows that blinked in sequence. When it spoke, the translator converted its grinding speech into flat, emotionless words. Humans of the metal nest, the alien began, its primary eyes focusing on Sarah while the others scanned the command center. I am Admiral Zorax of the Krellian Empire's 3rd Conquest Fleet. Your presence in this system violates our expansion charter filed with the Galactic Council 200 cycles ago. You will evacuate immediately or face complete annihilation. Sarah felt her jaw clench. The Krellian's so-called expansion charter was nothing more than a land grab, filed retroactively after humanity had already established Titan's Rest. But the Galactic Council, dominated by older spacefaring races, rarely sided with humanity in such disputes. Earth was still considered an upstart, a species that had achieved faster-than-light travel barely a century ago. Admiral Zorax, Sarah replied, keeping her voice level. Titan's Rest has been a recognized human colony for over a decade. We have families here, children who were born in this system. We've built our lives here. Surely we can reach some form of compromise. The alien's grinding laughter cut through the speakers like metal on stone. Compromise? You humans always speak of compromise when faced with superior force. You have 1 solar hour to begin evacuation. After that, we will reduce your metal nest to cosmic dust. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Sarah looked around at her staff, 23 people who had become like family over the years. Chief Engineer Roberto Silva, a bear of a man who could fix anything with enough duct tape and determination. Dr. Lisa Wong, their chief medical officer who had delivered half the babies on the station. Security Chief James Thompson, a former Marine who had traded his rifle for a desk job to be closer to his daughter. How long would a full evacuation take? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Roberto ran the calculations on his tablet, his thick fingers moving with surprising delicacy. With all transport ships running at maximum capacity, loading protocols ignored, safety margins pushed to breaking point. 48 hours minimum. And our defensive capabilities? Thompson shook his head grimly. We have 12-point defense turrets designed for asteroid deflection, not military engagement. Our shields can handle micrometeorites and solar radiation. Against Krellian plasma weapons? Maybe 5 minutes, Sarah nodded slowly. She had expected as much. Titan's Rest was a mining colony, not a military installation. They were engineers and miners, not soldiers. But they were also human, and humans had never been good at accepting impossible odds. Martinez, open a general frequency, maximum power, wide dispersal pattern. The communications officer looked confused but complied. Channel open, ma'am. Sarah took a deep breath. This is Administrator Sarah Chen of Titan's Rest Colony, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. We are under attack by a Krellian invasion fleet, 40-plus warships. They have given us 1 hour to evacuate 30,000 souls. We cannot comply. We will not abandon our home. If anyone is listening, we could use a miracle right about now. She gestured for Martinez to close the channel, then turned to address her staff. All right, people. We can't fight them, but we can buy time. Roberto, can you overcharge the mining lasers? The engineer's eyes lit up with understanding. They won't penetrate military shields, but they'll make a light show. Might confuse their targeting systems for a few seconds. Do it. Thompson, I want every able-bodied adult armed with whatever we have. If they board us, we make them pay for every meter. Lisa, start moving the children and elderly to the deepest parts of the station. The mining tunnels in the asteroids might provide some protection. As her people rushed to carry out their orders, Sarah returned to the observation window. The Krellian fleet had formed a perfect sphere around Titan's Rest, their weapons beginning to glow with pre-fire charging sequences. She wondered if Earth would even learn of their fate before it was too late. That's when Martinez's equipment started screaming. Administrator, I'm picking up a massive gravitational distortion. The young man's fingers flew across his console. Something's coming out of hyperspace, but this can't be right. The mass readings are off the scale. Krellian reinforcements? No, ma'am. The signature is. It's coming from the direction of Earth, but the energy pattern doesn't match any known human vessels. It's like someone folded space itself into a weapon. The lights in the command center flickered. Outside, the stars seemed to shimmer and bend. Then reality tore open. The ship that emerged defied comprehension. It was massive. Nearly 2 kilometers of dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its hull was covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if the vessel existed in more dimensions than the human eye could process. Weapon ports lined its surface like the scales of some ancient dragon, and energy crackled between spires that jutted from its superstructure like the spines of a sleeping giant. My God, Roberta whispered. What is that thing? Sarah found herself smiling for the first time since the Krellians had arrived. That, my friend, is humanity's worst-kept secret. The battleship Prometheus. 500 light-years away in a bunker buried beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean, Admiral Catherine Nash stood before the Global Defense Council. The room was filled with humanity's military and political leadership, all watching the tactical display showing the situation at Titan's Rest. 57 Krellian warships, she reported, her voice carrying the weight of command earned through 30 years of service. They've completely surrounded the colony. Administrator Chen has bought us time with her defiance, but without intervention, Titan's Rest will fall within the hour. The president of the United Earth Government, Michael Okonkwo, leaned forward in his chair. And you're certain this is the right moment to reveal the Prometheus? Nash nodded firmly. For 70 years, we've hidden our true military capabilities. We've let the galaxy think we're newcomers barely able to defend ourselves. We've suffered raids, territorial disputes, and diplomatic humiliation. But if we let Titan's Rest fall, if we let 30,000 humans die when we could have saved them, what's the point of having such weapons? The Chinese representative, General Liu Wei, spoke up. The psychological impact alone could destabilize our relations with every alien government. They'll see us as deceivers, as a threat. They already see us as prey, Nash countered. At least as a threat, we'll have their respect. The room fell silent as they watched the tactical display. The Prometheus had fully emerged from hyperspace now, its presence causing every Krellian ship to pivot and reassess. Energy readings from the human battleship were literally off the scale of most conventional sensors. President Okonkwo stood slowly. Admiral Nash, you have authorization to engage. Show them why humanity survived its own nuclear age. Show them why we're still here when by all rights we should have destroyed ourselves centuries ago. Show them what happens when you corner a species that turned mutual assured destruction into a philosophy of peace. Nash saluted sharply and activated her secure communication link.
Captain Rivera, this is Admiral Nash. You are authorized for full weapons release.
Protect Titan's Rest. Show no mercy to those who would harm our people. Across the vast gulf of space, Captain Marcus Rivera received the transmission in the Prometheus's command center. The bridge was a cathedral of war, with holographic displays creating a three-dimensional battlefield around the command chair. His crew of 300 had trained for this moment for years, hidden away in classified facilities, their existence known only to the highest levels of government. All stations report ready, Captain, his executive officer, Commander Yuki Tanaka, announced. She had been with him since the beginning, helping to develop the tactics they would need for a ship that violated most known laws of physics. Rivera stood, his weathered face showing no emotion. He was 62 years old, had served in the Earth Defense Force for 40 years, and had been selected to command humanity's most powerful secret weapon. He had hoped never to use it, but hope, he had learned, was a luxury frontier colonies couldn't afford. "Open a channel to the Krellian fleet," he ordered. The main screen shifted to show Admiral Zorax. The alien's 6 eyes had all focused forward now, a sign of extreme concentration or fear among his species. When he spoke, there was a new note in his translated voice: uncertainty. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself. Your energy signatures do not match any registered human ships. You're interfering in a legitimate territorial reclamation." Rivera smiled coldly. "Admiral Zorax, I am Captain Marcus Rivera of the Earth Defense Force battleship Prometheus. You have threatened human civilians. You have demanded the impossible. And you have made a fatal error. You've assumed humanity shows you all its cards. This ship has been waiting in the dark for 70 years, waiting for someone foolish enough to threaten our people en masse. Congratulations. You're the winner." Zorax's stone-like features somehow managed to convey confusion. "One ship against 57? You humans truly are insane." "Not insane, Admiral. Just very, very prepared. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system. This is your only warning." The Krellian's grinding laughter returned, though it sounded forced now. "You bluff with impressive confidence, human. But numbers are still numbers. All ships prepare to fire. Eliminate the human battleship first, then proceed with the colony's destruction." Rivera settled back in his command chair. "Tanaka, bring all weapons online. Let's show them what humanity learned from nearly destroying itself." When giants collide, the first law of space combat, as understood by every spacefaring race in the galaxy, was simple. Overwhelming numbers usually won. The second law was equally straightforward. Bigger ships needed bigger crews, making them vulnerable to precise strikes. The Prometheus was about to prove both laws wrong. "Krellian fleet is charging weapons," reported Lieutenant Commander Hassan al-Rashid from the tactical station. His voice was calm, almost bored. They had run this scenario in simulation 10,000 times. "Energy spike detected across all vessels. They're going for a coordinated alpha strike." Captain Rivera nodded slowly. "Initialize the quantum shields. Let's see how they handle something that exists in 7 dimensions simultaneously." The space around the Prometheus began to shimmer, not with conventional energy shields, but with something far more exotic. The ship seemed to blur, as if it existed in multiple places at once, each version slightly out of phase with the others. It was a defense system born from humanity's unique approach to quantum mechanics. If you couldn't be certain where a ship was, how could you hit it? "Incoming fire," al-Rashid announced. 57 Krellian warships fired as one. Beams of superheated plasma, each capable of melting through a meter of reinforced steel, converged on the Prometheus's position. The light was blinding, turning the darkness of space into artificial daylight. On Titan's Rest, colonists who had gathered at observation windows shielded their eyes from the brilliant display. When the light faded, the Prometheus remained. Not just intact, completely untouched. The plasma beams had passed through the spaces between quantum states, hitting nothing but probability clouds and mathematical uncertainties. To the Krellians' sensors, it must have seemed like their weapons had simply ceased to exist the moment they touched the human ship's defensive field. In his command throne aboard the Krellian flagship Stonecrusher, Admiral Zorax felt something he had never experienced in 40 years of conquest. Doubt. His species had subjugated dozens of worlds, faced countless defensive technologies, but nothing like this. Analysis. He barked at his science officer. "Unknown defensive configuration," the officer replied, his 6 eyes blinking rapidly in confusion. "Our weapons are hitting the target, but also not hitting it. The human ship appears to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. It's impossible." "Nothing is impossible," Zorax growled. "Concentrate all fire on a single point. Overwhelm whatever system they're using." Back on the Prometheus, Rivera watched the Krellian fleet reposition with professional interest. They're adapting quickly. Credit where it's due. They're good tacticians. "Shall we return fire, Captain?" Tanaka asked, her hand hovering over the weapons authorization panel. "Let's start small. Al-Rashid, target their flagship with a single graviton beam. 10% power. The weapons officer's fingers danced across his holographic controls. Deep within the Prometheus, exotic matter generators that had taken humanity decades to perfect spun up to speed. They created a focused beam of gravitons, particles that mediated the fundamental force of gravity itself. The beam was invisible to the naked eye, but its effects were immediately apparent. The Stone Crusher, a kilometer-long vessel that massed several million tons, suddenly crumpled, not from external pressure, but from its own mass increasing exponentially in localized areas. The ship's hull folded in on itself like origami being crushed by an invisible fist. In seconds, what had been the pride of the Krellian fleet was reduced to a sphere of hyperdense metal no larger than a shuttle. The communication channels exploded with alien voices. Rivera's translator couldn't keep up with the cacophony of different species all broadcasting at once. The Krellians weren't the only ones watching this battle. Every major power in the sector had spy drones or observation posts monitoring the situation. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from everywhere," Martinez reported from Titan's Rest, his voice carrying over the command link. "Thraxian, Melodian, Zephyr Coalition, even the Galactic Council. They're all asking the same question. What have the humans been hiding?" Rivera ignored the chatter. "Al-Rashid, target the next 3 largest vessels. Same weapon, 15% power. Tanaka, prepare the antimatter missiles for launch." "Captain," his weapons officer said quietly, "if we deploy antimatter weapons, there's no going back. Every species in the galaxy will know we've weaponized antimatter on a scale they've deemed impossible." "They threatened 30,000 civilians, Commander. They've already crossed the line." 3 more Krellian ships imploded, their death throes sending gravitational waves rippling through space. The remaining fleet began to scatter, their formation dissolving into chaos. Some ships tried to retreat, only to find their hyperspace drives mysteriously offline. The Prometheus was generating a dimensional interdiction field that prevented faster-than-light travel within a light-hour radius, the bridge of a Krellian destroyer. Captain Vexak watched his admiral's ship disappear into a point of impossible density. His second-in-command was openly praying to their stone gods, something he hadn't seen since he was a hatchling. "Orders, Captain?" his pilot asked, all 6 hands gripping the control console. "Survive," Vexak replied. "Full power to engines. Get us out of interdiction range." "But the Admiral's orders—" "The Admiral is a compressed ball of metal floating in space. Human mercy might exist. Defying physics doesn't move." As his ship fled, Vexak opened a communications channel to the rest of the fleet. "All vessels, this is Captain Vexak assuming command. Full retreat. Repeat, full retreat. The humans have deployed unknown weapon systems. Retreat immediately." But the Prometheus wasn't finished. "Launch antimatter missiles," Rivera ordered. "Target any ship still pointing weapons at Titan's Rest." From the battleship's hull, dozens of ports opened, releasing missiles that looked deceptively simple. Each one contained a few grams of antimatter held in perfect magnetic containment. Upon impact, they would release energy equivalent to several nuclear weapons, but with no radioactive fallout, just pure, clean annihilation. The missiles moved impossibly fast, accelerating at rates that should have torn them apart. Another gift of humanity's quantum mastery, inertial dampening that worked by spreading acceleration across multiple dimensions. To the missiles themselves, they were barely moving. To outside observers, they were traveling at significant fractions of light speed. 20 Krellian ships vanished in flowers of pure energy. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply converted from matter to energy in the universe's most efficient reaction. The light was visible from planets 3 systems away, in the depths of space. Hidden observation posts from every major galactic power recorded everything. The Thraxian Empire's military command watched in stunned silence as ships they had considered state-of-the-art were swatted like insects. The Melodian Harmony's diplomatic corps began frantically revising every treaty they had with Earth. The Zephyr Coalition's economic advisors started calculating what this meant for the galactic balance of power, and in the Galactic Council's emergency session, representatives from 90 different species were coming to the same horrifying realization. Humanity had been playing with a handicap this entire time. Back on Titan's Rest, Sarah Chen stood in the command center watching the tactical display with mixed emotions. The colony was safe, but at what cost? The secret was out now. Humanity's hidden strength was revealed. "Administrator," Martinez said quietly, I'm receiving a transmission from the Prometheus. Captain Rivera wants to speak with you. Sarah nodded, and Rivera's weathered face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, she could see the bridge of humanity's secret weapon, all clean lines and holographic displays. Administrator Chen, Rivera said formally, Titan's Rest is secure. The remaining Krellian ships are retreating. We'll maintain position until Earth sends a permanent defensive fleet. Captain, Sarah replied, what happens now? The entire galaxy just saw what we're capable of. Rivera's expression was grim. Now? Now we deal with the consequences. For 70 years we've hidden our true capabilities, learned from our near self-destruction, developed weapons we hoped never to use, but they forced our hand. Maybe it's time the galaxy knew the truth about humanity, which is that we're the only species that nearly annihilated ourselves with atomic weapons and survived to become spacefaring. We're the only ones who developed mutual assured destruction as a concept, lived under its shadow for generations, and came out the other side. Every other species developed space travel, then weapons. We did it backward. We created weapons that could end worlds, then figured out how to live with them. The communication ended, leaving Sarah staring at the tactical display. The Krellian fleet was in full retreat now, leaving behind the compressed remains of their destroyed ships. But she knew this was just the beginning. Word would spread. The galaxy would react. In a secure bunker on Earth, Admiral Nash stood before the Global Defense Council once more. The room was tense, filled with the weight of what had just occurred. The Prometheus performed beyond expectations, she reported. 37 Krellian vessels destroyed or disabled. 20 escaped. 0 human casualties. Titan's Rest is secure. President Okonkwo nodded slowly. And the galactic response? Every major power is requesting emergency diplomatic meetings. The Galactic Council has called a special session. Our intelligence suggests massive fleet movements across 3 sectors. Not aggressive, but defensive. They're scared. General Liu Wei leaned forward. How many other ships like the Prometheus do we have? Nash smiled grimly. That's classified beyond even this council's clearance. But I can say this, the Prometheus is not unique. We learned our lesson from the Cold War. Never build just one doomsday weapon. The implications hung in the air like a physical presence. Somewhere in the dark between stars, hidden in classified locations, more ships like the Prometheus waited. Humanity's insurance policy against a hostile universe. 3 days later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every major species were present, either in person or by hologram. The human ambassador, Dr. Elena Vasquez, stood at the center of the assembly, facing questions from 90 different worlds. Ambassador Vasquez, the Thraxian representative began, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. For decades, humanity has presented itself as a minor power, barely capable of defending your own colonies. Now we discover you possess weapons that defy our understanding of physics. Explain yourself. Elena stood straight, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Honored representatives, humanity's history is unique among spacefaring races. We developed nuclear weapons when we were still trapped on one planet. We came within minutes of total self-annihilation during what we call the Cold War. We survived only by developing a doctrine of mutual assured destruction, peace through the promise of overwhelming retaliation. When we achieved faster than light travel and met the galactic community, we found a universe where conflicts were common, where might often made right. So we made a choice. We would hide our true capabilities, avoid confrontation when possible, and develop defenses in secret. Not because we wanted to deceive, but because we knew what we were capable of if pushed too far. The Melodian ambassador, her form shifting through shades of concern, spoke next. You built doomsday weapons and hid them from the galaxy. How can we trust you? Because we've had these weapons for 70 years and never used them, Elena replied. Until the Krellians threatened to massacre 30,000 civilians. We don't want to be conquerors or overlords. We just want to be left in peace to build our colonies and raise our children. But if you threaten those colonies, those children, well, you've seen what happens. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some species called for sanctions against humanity. Others, particularly those who had border disputes with the Krellians, suddenly wanted to discuss defensive alliances. The balance of power that had existed for millennia had shifted in a single battle. Meanwhile, at Titan's Rest, life slowly returned to normal. The mining operations resumed. Children went back to school. But now, overhead, The Prometheus maintained its vigil, a dark angel watching over humanity's frontier. Sarah Chen stood in her office looking at a message from Earth. It was a commendation for her actions during the crisis, along with something else, an invitation to tour the Prometheus. As she read, Martinez knocked on her door. "Administrator, we're receiving requests for mining rights from 3 different species who previously wouldn't return our calls. And the Krellian Empire has sent a formal apology for the misunderstanding." Sarah laughed, the sound bitter and amused in equal measure. Amazing how polite everyone becomes when they realize you have a bigger stick than they thought. "Ma'am, do you think things will be better now? For humanity, I mean." Sarah considered the question. Outside her window, she could see the Prometheus holding station. Its impossible geometry a constant reminder of humanity's hidden strength. Different, certainly. Better? Time will tell. But at least now they know the truth. Humans are not prey. We're the species that turned mutual annihilation into an art form and survived. We're the ones who built weapons that could crack planets, then decided to use them only as shields. We're the paradox of the galaxy, the most peaceful warrior race in existence. As she spoke across the galaxy, military academies began revising their textbooks. The chapter on humanity would need to be rewritten. No longer would they be listed as a minor power, technologically inferior but diplomatically cunning. Now they would be known for what they truly were, the sleeping giant of the galaxy, content to dream of peace but capable of nightmares when awakened. The message was clear to every species among the stars. Humanity had arrived not with conquest or demands, but with a simple warning. Leave us alone and we'll leave you alone. Threaten us and discover why we're the only species that survived our own capacity for destruction. In the void between stars, the Prometheus continued its watch, a monument to humanity's greatest achievement, the ability to build ultimate weapons and choose not to use them, until the protection of innocent lives demanded otherwise. It was perhaps the most human thing of all, the power to destroy completely wielded with the wisdom to preserve peace. The galaxy would never be the same.